Right, let's get stuck into these stories then, and we're going to start with the Telegraph and an exclusive in that paper. This is Jason's paper from Matt Law, and they say that Levy is ready to axe Conte. He's flown home to Italy as the Spurs chairman decides his fate, with the possibility of Ryan Mason taking charge until the end of the season. It's in the Telegraph, so let me come to you, Jason. 3 days on from the incredible tirade from Antonio Conte dominating the headlines. We wondered how it would end. Looks like we have the answer then. Is it just a case of when, not if, he goes now?
Yeah, I think that's correct. It looks like the decision has pretty much been made that he will no longer be the Tottenham Hotspur head coach. And obviously going into an international break, it gives Daniel Levy a few days to sort out the situation before they play their next game, I think, against Everton. But I think after the events of the weekend, it's pretty expected in a way that this would happen. I think it's probably come to a head a bit quicker than we did expect. But Antonio Conte has flown back to Italy, to his home in Turin today, and I think that will be it. I think now he'll be negotiating his departure from the club, and it's no surprise to say after what's happened in the last couple of weeks, in particular Saturday was untenable, really, the way he spoke afterwards. I know he tried to clarify and say that it was directed towards the players, having the previous week directed all his anger towards the fans. But if you go back over the press conferences he gave on Saturday, he clearly was talking about the club as well. And anyone who knows Daniel Levy will know once the attention is turned onto him in that manner, there's only one end. And once again, Tottenham are looking for a new manager. And I think because of the situation they're in, Ryan Mason is the obvious candidate, although, again, that's a huge risk. Relative rookie, obviously, he's been in charge briefly before. There are out-of-work managers that Tottenham have an interest in, but whether they can persuade one of them to come at this point in the season, I'm really not sure.
Yeah, we'll talk more about who might take over as and when this happens shortly. But just to pick out a line here in Matt Law's piece, John, where he says that the situation is rated as almost irretrievable now by a variety of sources at the club. You know, he turned on the players, accused them of being selfish and lacking heart. I mean, can you remember a situation when that ever ended well?
No, I can't really. I mean, lots of back pages are doing that he'll go home sort of to Italy, and he's flown home. What I quite like about his flight home was that he took a Ryanair flight, didn't he? It's all too easy to get a private jet, but at least he's doing his bit for the green world, really, and to save the planet. But look, I just feel that it's not been right for him this season. I'm a big admirer of Conte. And I do feel as if last season it was still job done. He got them into the top four. And so kind of, you justified his season in charge without a shadow of a doubt. This season, it's not been happy for him, both on and off the pitch. You know, we should take into account just how much he's suffered off the pitch, losing friends and those close to him. And I think he's taken that particularly hard. And, it's been a devastating time for him. I just felt what he said after Southampton on Saturday just made it inevitable, didn't it? I'm not sure that there's a way back from that, because normally, you talk about the players, the manager losing sort of the dressing room. Well, the dressing room was sort of firmly turned on the manager, and I think they were losing respect for him, because when you completely absolve yourself, as he appeared to do, we shouldn't forget that he rested Harry Kane, although Stellini was in charge. He rested Harry Kane for that cup tie at Sheffield United, which frankly for me was the beginning of the end, because I think that signalled the unravelling of their season. They went out the FA Cup, quickly followed by a defeat at Wolves, blow to the top four hopes, quickly followed by a European Champions League exit. It's just utterly bizarre. If you talk about trying to get a mentality right, winning mentality at Spurs, or dropping your best player, it isn't going to help in sort of trying to win trophies and make sure that trophies is your priority, is it?
Yeah, if we move into the Times now and see how they're reading the situation, that they say that there's a recognition amongst the players that Conte's relationship with the team may now be broken beyond repair. The players think that his era at Spurs is over. They think the writing is on the wall. And they also make the point that, and you touched on it before, Jason, that this international break, as they say, has given the Spurs chairman, Daniel Levy, some time to reflect on the best way forward. You do wonder, actually, if it wasn't for this international break, whether they might have reached a different outcome.
Yes, although obviously they do have Ryan Mason there as a possibility in terms of a caretaker, and that does look like the most likely solution from now until the end of the season. But as I said before, there's a huge risk involved in that. There's an awful lot still to play for Tottenham. Obviously, it's only Premier League games left, 10 games to go, but they've got to finish in that top four, the fourth at the moment, but the team's breathing down their neck. Now, what do? Obviously, I think they wanted to leave it till the summer and have a more serene departure for Antonio Conte and a more proper process in terms of hiring his successor. And there are lots of different people that Tottenham are interested in. We know they've definitely got an interest in Roberto De Zerbi at Brighton. There's also Ruben Amorim at Sporting. Those two are obviously in jobs. And then there are a number of high-profile managers out of jobs, including Maurizio Pochettino, Thomas Tuchel, and Luis Enrique, who again may interest Tottenham. But getting one of those managers to come at this point of the season is going to be very, very difficult. Managers like that tend to not want to come during seasons, especially towards the end of a season. They'd rather come in a pre-season and take over then. So Daniel Levy's got an awful lot to sort out in the next few days. As I say, he's got that insurance policy of Ryan Mason up his sleeve, but whether or not that's going to be good enough for them to get over the line and finish fourth this season, there's a risk involved. But I think he's probably made the decision now that he needs to move on from Antonio Conte, which probably, the way things have panned out in the last 2 weeks, is the right decision. It was only heading one way and it was getting more and more poisonous. And what was he going to say after the next possible defeat? Who else was he going to blame? Who else was he going to lash out at? And obviously, I think the atmosphere at the club needed to change, and maybe that's what they decide to do now.
I mean, it's a story making all the back pages, all going with the same angle, that it's just a matter of time now for Conte. Let's show you the Sun. Conte set for sacking days, and the top left is what they're saying. And then if you move on to the Mail, down at the bottom right there, Levy ready to sack Conte. And backing up what Jason was saying there, that Ryan Mason is a candidate to replace him in the short term. Just finally on this, though, John, talking about how it might be difficult to persuade a Pochettino or Tuchel to take over before the summer. I mean, they're already in the top four, currently in the Champions League places. It's a chance for a new manager to come in and see what he's got before the transfer window opens, possibly get them over the line into the Champions League. I mean, isn't there an argument this is the perfect time to take over Tottenham?
Yeah, I think three of the big contenders, three of the candidates are available now. Luis Enrique, Maurizio Pochettino and Thomas Tuchel. There's no doubt about it. I think Thomas Tuchel would like to come back to English football. I actually think it would be a mistake from Pochettino to come back. But, I do think who is making this appointment, that's Daniel Levy definitely has the final say. Absolutely, he does. Of course, he does. He runs the club, and largely runs the club well. But I do think that Paratici, is going to have a say. But what's his future? We don't actually. We know that particularly sort of in the long term. And so I do feel that they shouldn't throw this season away. That's not being detrimental to Ryan Mason, who's done this job before, of course, filled in before. But they're in the box seat. They could easily get into the top four. They did from a similar position last season. So we shouldn't write off those chances. And therefore, I do think there should be, a possibility of getting one of those managers who are available now to come in and give them a lift, get them back in the Champions League. It's within grasp.
Harry Kane will certainly be very interested in watching who takes over from Antonio Conte at Tottenham. He is the story in the back of the Metro. I mean, how big an impact will the choice of manager have on his decision come the summer? £100 million Harry is the headline. Spurs demand a 9-figure fee to ward off interest from Manchester United. This story is in a couple of papers in the morning. Let me come to you on this one, Jason. I suppose it begs the question, how much is too much for the England striker who'll be 30 in the summer but guarantees you 20-plus goals a season?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is obviously a sense of deja vu around this. 2 years ago, we were in a similar situation. Harry Kane's future was under debate, whether he was going to leave then, and we didn't know what was going to happen with the Tottenham manager. And it's all come around again. And I'm sure Harry Kane is really going to be interested to see what happens in terms of Antonio Conte going and who's going to replace him. And Daniel Levy's going to have to speak to Harry Kane and try and see where he feels about it and try and make sure he's happy to stay. But I think that £100 million figure is right. I think, they will want as much as that for him. It sounds a bit crazy. He's got 1 year left on his contract. He's 30 in July, but I don't think that will deter Tottenham from asking for that sort of price. And I'm actually not sure whether it'll deter a club from offering it. I mean, we know that Manchester United are definitely interested in Harry Kane, and Victor Osimhen, obviously at Napoli, is another big name striker that they're looking at. So that is a priority for them this summer. So it may be that they actually do come in with an offer around that figure. It seems like crazy money, as you say, but he is a proven goal scorer. Okay, he's going to be 30 soon. Okay, he's got 1 year left on his contract, but it's probably still worth it.